And with that £1, you could walk out with a full shopping bag, a belly full of fish and chips, a splash of petrol in the tank, and even a night out at the cinema sorted. Imagine, if you will, stepping into the crisp air of 1971. You have just one single shiny pound coin in your pocket, a quid. Let's travel back to the year Britain went decimal, a time of monumental change, flared trousers, and David Bowie on the wireless. We're going to rediscover just how powerful that single pound truly was. It wasn't just money. It was a ticket to a whole day's adventure, a little piece of paper that held a world of possibilities. It sounds like a fairy tale now, doesn't it? But for a fleeting moment in history, it was wonderfully, brilliantly real. 1971. What a year! It was the year of Get Carter and Diamonds Are Forever at the Pictures, the year Rod Stewart topped the charts with Maggie May. But more than that, it was the year Britain took a deep breath, held its nose, and jumped headfirst into one of the biggest changes in living memory. I'm talking, of course, about Decimal Day. On the 15th of February, we said a fond, if slightly confusing, farewell to our old friends. Pounds, shillings, and pence, the florins, the half-crowns, the threepenny bits, all vanished overnight. In their place came a shiny new system, one that felt suspiciously simple. 100 new pence to the pound. There was a strange mix of feelings in the air, a bit of excitement, a fair amount of suspicion towards those tiny new coins, and a whole lot of confusion. Mums and dads across the country stood at shop counters, purses open, peering at conversion charts and muttering about the new halfpenny. But the real shock, it wasn't just the coins themselves. It was what a single, crisp pound note could actually get you. Now, if you do the maths, a pound in 1971 is worth roughly £10 today. But trust me when I say this, it felt like it stretched a whole lot further than that. It was a golden ticket, a magic key that unlocked a world of simple pleasures. So, let's take a little trip back and see just what a quid could do. First up, the pub. For beer lovers, 1971 was practically paradise. A pint of bitter, creamy and comforting would set you back around 16 new pence. Do the sums. That meant a single pound note could buy you 6 whole pints, and you'd still walk away with change jingling in your pocket. The pubs were brimming with working men, a pint of courage tavern in one hand, a laugh shared with mates in the other. A proper night out barely made a dent in your wages. Today, you're lucky if a fiver gets you 1 pint. Back then, a pound practically bought you the entire evening. It was a different world. And how did you get to that pub? Well, you probably drove. Imagine this, filling up your car for what feels like pocket change. In 1971, petrol cost around 20p a gallon. So, that same pound note could get you 5 whole gallons of fuel. That was enough for days and days of driving, tootling around town, or heading out to the coast for the weekend. Nobody thought twice about the cost of fuel. It was just cheap. The great oil crisis of '73 was still a distant storm cloud on the horizon, and the age of motoring felt wonderfully, liberatingly free. The open road truly felt open. Now, what about feeding the family? This is where the power of that pound really shines. Cod, haddock, and herring were the undisputed kings of the British dinner table, and they were astonishingly affordable. A pound of fresh cod was just 33p, haddock a mere 35p, and herring, bless it, was a ridiculous 15p a pound. You could walk into the fishmonger's with your pound note and come out with a hefty bag of fresh fish, enough to feed the whole family for their Friday tea, with plenty left over. Fish and chips wasn't a once-in-a-while treat. It was normal, it was affordable, it was simply what you had for dinner. But 1971 wasn't all tradition. It was also the year Britain developed a rather sophisticated new taste. It was the year we discovered yogurt, specifically ski yogurt. Those little colourful parts felt wonderfully continental, a little bit fancy. They appeared in the fridge like exotic treasures, and at only 6p a pot, your pound could bring home a staggering 16 of them. Suddenly, a family activity became trying all the new flavours: strawberry, raspberry, apricot. It was a small, sweet sign of changing times. Of course, in a world before emails and instant messages, we relied on something far more personal: the written word. Writing letters was still the main way we stayed in touch with friends and family, and that pound note was your passport to connection. A first-class stamp cost a neat 3p. The second-class stamp, however, introduced us to that dreaded, fiddly little thing, the 2p coin. But with your pound, you could send 33 first-class letters. You could write to your nan, your cousin in Australia, your old friend from school, and you'd still have enough change for a bag of sweets. That jingle in your pocket was the sound of staying connected. Now, here's one that's hard to believe from today's perspective. Smoking was, to put it mildly, everywhere. It was in the pubs, on the buses, in the office, even in the doctor's waiting room. And the cost? A packet of 20 cigarettes was around 5p. Yes, you heard that right. 5 pence. That meant your pound note could buy 20 packets. 400 cigarettes. Vending machines sold them openly on street corners. It really was a different world entirely, clouded in a haze of smoke and forgotten norms. Looking for some entertainment? Well, for the price of a modern-day coffee, you could have a whole month of fun. A ticket to the pictures cost just 7p. So, for £1, you could go to the cinema 14 times. You could see double features, watch the newsreels, and enjoy a chalk ice during the interval without a care in the world. You could take the whole family to see a film, and then take them again the following week, all on the same pound note. It was regular, affordable magic. And what about the absolute basics? The daily loaf. A fresh loaf of bread, whether it was from the bakery or sliced white for your sandwiches, cost about 5p. That meant 20 loaves for a single pound. 20. Imagine that. No one worried about affording the fundamentals. Bread was truly the staff of life, and it was wonderfully, reassuringly cheap. Another cornerstone of British life was the clink of glass bottles on the doorstep. The milkman was a part of the morning routine, as reliable as the sunrise. Milk cost between 7 and 8p a pint. So, for your pound, you could have 13 pints delivered straight to your door, each in a glass bottle with a little silver or cold foil top, ready for you to poke your thumb through. It was a simple, comforting ritual, a gentle rhythm of daily life that has all but vanished. And finally, let's talk about eggs. The humble egg, the foundation of a good breakfast. They cost roughly 2p each, thanks again to that tricky halfpenny. But it meant that your quid could buy you 6 dozen eggs, 72 of them. Enough for a week of breakfast for a massive family. Enough for all your baking, and enough for the Sunday roast accompaniments. Protein wasn't a luxury item you had to budget for. It was cheap, it was local, and it was always in the pantry. If this is bringing back a few memories, maybe of the taste of that first ski yogurt or the smell of the cinema foyer, go on and give this video a like. And for more warm trips back to old Britain, subscribe to Briteco Nostalgia. We'd love to have you. And right then, let's carry on. When you look back at it all, it's easy to feel a pang of longing, isn't it? For the simplicity, for the sheer buying power of that single piece of paper. 6 pints, 5 gallons of petrol, a mountain of fresh fish. It sounds like a fantasy, but it's not just about the prices. It's about what those prices represented. A sense of security, a feeling that the basics were covered, that a night out or a trip to the pictures didn't require a week of planning and saving. It was a life lived with a little less financial anxiety, perhaps. A time when a pound in your pocket felt like real wealth, full of possibility. Of course, it wasn't perfect, far from it. But looking back at what a pound could buy in 1971 isn't just an exercise in economics. It's a snapshot of a different way of life, a reminder of the simple, tangible pleasures that once formed the bedrock of our world. The taste of fresh bread, the sound of the milk float, the magic of the big screen. And those are memories that, no matter the price, are truly invaluable. Remember 1971? It was the year that changed everything for our wallets. 20 things £1 bought you in 1971. Decimalisation arrived, and suddenly we were all fumbling with new pence instead of shillings and crowns. But that single, crisp pound note, back then, it was a golden ticket to a world of wonders. The average weekly wage was around £31 for a man, and just £14 for a woman. So while a pound felt like a lot more money, it was also harder to come by. Still, what it could get you feels almost unbelievable today. So, grab a cuppa, settle in, and let's journey back to see just how far one quid could stretch in 1971. Let's start with the basics, the things that filled every British kitchen. Number 1. A pint of fresh milk. You could get not 1, not 2, but a whopping 20 pints of milk for a single pound, at just 5p a pint, often delivered right to your doorstep by the milkmen in those iconic glass bottles with foil tops. It was the fuel for the nation's tea and cornflakes. Imagine that, enough milk for a family for over a week, all for £1. Next up, a staple of every fry-up and sandwich. Bread. For your pound, you could march out of the baker's and come home with 10 large white loaves. At 10p a loaf, that was enough bread for endless toast, soldiers for your dippy eggs, and sandwiches for the kids' lunch boxes. The smell of fresh bread was a constant on the high street, a simple, affordable pleasure. And what goes better with bread than eggs? For £1, you could get a staggering 14 dozen eggs, with a dozen costing around 7p. Your pound coin bought you a mountain of 168 eggs. It was an era of big families and hearty breakfasts. And at that price, you could bake cakes, whip up omelettes, and have a boiled egg every morning without ever worrying about running out. Of course, no shopping basket was complete without potatoes. That same pound coin would buy you 33 pounds of spuds. Yes, 33 pounds is. At just 3p per pound, you had enough for Mum's legendary Sunday roasties, fluffy mash, chips for Friday night tea, and baked potatoes for weeks on end. It was the backbone of British cooking, and it was wonderfully cheap. For our fifth item, let's talk about a classic British pairing, tea and sugar. £1 would get you 12 bags of sugar, with each £2 bag costing about 8p. That was more than enough to keep the sugar bowl full for everyone's tea, and to do a spot of home baking. Life was definitely a bit sweeter back then, and your pound made sure of it. But it wasn't just about the essentials. £1 also bought you a bit of a treat, a bit of a night out. Take number 6, a trip to the pub. In 1971, a pint of beer cost around 15p. So, for your pound, you could get 6 whole pints and still have 10p change for a packet of crisps. You and your mates could have a proper session down the local, solving the world's problems one pint at a time, all for the price of a fancy coffee today. If the cinema was more your scene, your pound went even further. A ticket to see the latest blockbuster, perhaps Diamonds Are Forever with Sean Connery, would set you back just 7p. That meant your pound could buy you 14 cinema tickets. You could take the entire street. It was affordable magic, a chance to escape into another world for just a few pennies. Let's not forget fish and chips, the undisputed king of British takeaways. A generous portion of cod and chips from the local chippy cost about 14p. So, for £1, you could treat the family to 7 portions. Imagine that, feeding 7 people a hot, delicious meal for a quid. No wonder it was a national institution. For those who smoked, £1 was also quite powerful. A pack of 20 cigarettes, brands like Embassy or Players No. 6, cost around 24p. This meant a single £1 note could buy you for packs, enough to see you through a good chunk of the week. It was a different time, and the price certainly reflected that. And what about getting around? Public transport was remarkably cheap. A single bus fare in most cities was just 2.5p. Your pound could cover 40 bus journeys. You could get to work and back every day for 2 weeks, and still have change. It made getting around the city accessible for absolutely everyone. Now, let's move on to those little luxuries that made life feel a bit richer. Number 11. Proper butter. None of that margarine nonsense. Real butter cost about 20p for a £1/2 block. So, your pound brought home 5 whole blocks of the good stuff. It was perfect for slathering on hot toast, for Mum's baking, or for making the Sunday roast potatoes extra crispy and delicious. Brits were also starting to get a taste for the continental lifestyle, and that meant wine. Basic table wine, often from Spain, was just 25p a bottle. Suddenly, wine bars were popping up, and dinner parties felt a bit more sophisticated. For £1, you could get 4 bottles, making it easy and affordable to feel a little bit fancy. Back in the kitchen cupboard, another hero was waiting: Heinz baked beans. A tin cost around 9p, which meant £1 filled your larder with 11 tins. It was the heart of the ultimate quick meal, beans on toast, and a comforting staple that was always there when you needed it. 11 tins for £1, that's emergency dinner sorted for weeks. For the ladies, a fashion essential was a pair of tights. They cost around 50p a pair, so £1 bought you 2 reliable pairs. In an age of miniskirts, tights were a daily necessity. They laddered and they snagged, but at that price, replacing them didn't break the bank. And for the kids, £1 was a treasure chest. The average chocolate bar, whether it was a Dairy Milk, a Mars, or a Bounty, cost just 5p. That meant £1 could buy 20 chocolate bars. 20. Kids could spend their pocket money at the corner shop and come out with a bag full of treats without a second thought. It was a sweet, sweet time to be a child. Music was another passion, and in 1971, it felt more special, more tangible. Budget LPs, often compilation albums like Top of the Pops, cost between 77p and 99p. If you saved up your change, that £1 could buy you a brand new record. Music wasn't disposable like it is today. You owned it, you looked after it, and you treasured it. Summer days and kids' parties weren't complete without fizzy pop. A big bottle of Corona lemonade cost about 15p, so your pound could buy 6 or 7 bottles. And the best part, the bottles were returnable. You'd get a few pence back for the empties at the shop. A brilliant little recycling scheme before we even called it that. For the bookworms, a pound was a ticket to countless adventures. A paperback book from authors like Agatha Christie or Alistair MacLean cost between 30p and 60p. So, your pound always bought you one new book, and sometimes even 2. Reading was a cheap and wonderful pleasure. Back when every high street had a proper bookshop you could get lost in. Even keeping clean was incredibly affordable. A tube of toothpaste, whether it was Colgate or Maclean's, cost 20p. For a pound, you could stock the bathroom cabinet with 5 tubes. Basic hygiene was inexpensive and accessible to all. A simple fact of life we often take for granted. And finally, number 20, staying informed. A daily newspaper like the Daily Mirror or the Sun cost a mere 3p. For £1, you could have a newspaper delivered to your door every single day for 33 days. That was more than a month of headlines, sports results, and stories from around the world for just £1. And there you have it. 20 things a single pound bought you in 1971. The year decimalisation changed Britain forever. From 6 pints of beer down the pub, to 14 trips to the pictures, to enough bread, milk, and eggs to feed a family for a week, that humble pound went astonishingly, unbelievably far. Yes, the average weekly wage was much lower than today, but when you look at the prices, they were just kinder. Life felt simpler, slower, and you can't help but feel somehow warmer. What do you remember a pound buying back in the day? Did you spend it on records, sweets, or something else entirely? Share your memories in the comments below. We absolutely love reading them. And if you enjoyed this trip down memory lane, don't forget to give the video a like and subscribe to Proteco Nostalgia. Do it before these memories disappear, just like Woolworths from the high street. Thanks for watching.